Hi, everyone. Welcome to our virtual coffee lunch and learn edition. Virtual Coffee's mission is to be a welcoming tech community that allows room for growth and mentorship at all levels, and to create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. To find our code of conduct, events, and to learn more, check out our site at virtualcoffee.io. Today, we want to thank our presenter, Alicia, for being here. She's going to tell us about navigating team matching after passing technical interview rounds. So, Alicia, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. As Meg said, I'm Alicia, and I will be here to talk about navigating the team matching process. Specifically, some questions I wish I had asked and wish I had answers to before I started the team matching process in my latest job search. I currently work as a senior software engineer for Airbnb. Everything I say in this presentation is based on my experiences and opinions, and nothing I say is representative of my company. The overall interview process is based on, or the process I'm talking about is based on my experience interviewing as a senior software engineer in early 2025. The interview process can vary based on the level. So if you're going for a junior or staff or principal role, or by role type, if you're going for a manager or project manager or data science, the interview process may differ a little bit. But team matching might show up and it will have a very similar structure. So just keep in mind that my experience is based on that of a senior software engineer and it may vary for you. The overall interview process I have shown here to illustrate that team matching occurs after all of your technical interviews and right before the offer phase. So you're done your technical interviews, you've passed them, but you do not yet have an offer. This is where team matching happens. For this presentation, I'll be primarily focusing on team matching, but team matching is part of an overall interview process. So if you have any questions about the interview process in general or how it relates to team matching, I'm happy to answer questions about that. Okay, there is one thing I want everyone to take away from this, and it's that when you are in team matching, you are not guaranteed an offer. Uh, you may not get an offer. You may not know when you'll get an offer if you do, but this is the one thing to take away if you take away one thing from this presentation. And I'll talk a little bit more over the course of this presentation about why it's important to keep this in mind. I'm going to go over some questions that I wish I'd answered, which I wish I had asked. As I said before, if you see a question that you want to ask on here, don't worry, I'll cover it. And if you have questions that come up, feel free to ask them in the chat or after the presentation. First, starting off with a definition of what is team matching. So team matching is a process where the company recruiter tries to match a qualified candidate to one or more open positions by having the candidate meet with multiple managers or however many openings there are. To illustrate this, you're a candidate and you've passed all of the interviews. You're verified to have the right technical skills and experience. Once you've passed, you're then put into a pool of candidates that have also passed the technical interviews. These candidates will be matched with different openings at the company. So to keep in mind that you're one of many candidates that are going through team matching, and the other candidates are also being matched with potential open positions. So this might raise a couple of questions. What if there are more roles than candidates? This is good because then you'll have more options and you have less competition. You won't know who else is in team matching. You won't know how many other people are being matched with the same role. But this is the ideal scenario for a candidate where they have a lot of choices and offers won't disappear. The other side is if there are more candidates than there are open positions. In this case, there are candidates who will not match and will not get an offer. And so this goes back to the fact that even if you are a fully qualified candidate and you did great on all of your interviews, if there are no more open roles, then you will not get an offer. That being said, there are open roles going into the pool over time. And so just because at one given point in time there are no more openings, there may still be an option later on if you see an opening come up or if your recruiter finds an opening. This also can happen when a posting hasn't come up on the job site yet. So as positions open up, the recruiter will know and you'll be put in as a candidate for that new position. How long does team matching take? This is something that was one of the most important things that I wish I had known more about. And there is no simple answer to this. It will take at least a couple of weeks, but one recruiter told me that she had a candidate in team matching for 3 months, and they ended up taking another job because they couldn't find a match. And so in the time it takes to do team matching, you can do a whole other interview process with another company. And so again, it goes back to you're not really guaranteed an offer. And so you have to keep that in mind, especially when you're in the team matching process and you don't know how long it's going to take. So I've broken this down into two different ways team matching might go. And the first strategy is first match. Now, you don't get to choose, it's the company that chooses which strategy they go with. So, with first match, you'll meet with one manager from a team and decide yes or no, do I want this position? And the manager will do the same. You might meet with two teams the first week of your team matching, and both teams aren't a match. And this might mean you don't want to work for the team, or this might mean that the manager doesn't think it's a match. It could be on both sides. And this might go on for however many weeks it takes for you to find a match. Once you find a match, it will take another week for the hiring committee to meet to get an offer. I'll talk about what hiring committee is later. On the other hand, you could match with the first team. So week one, you match with team one, and then you'll get an offer the second week. So in the first match scenario, your team matching could be as short as 1 week to get an offer, or it could be multiple weeks, multiple months, you don't know. The second strategy is what I call best match. You'll meet with a fixed number of teams, say 4 teams, and at the end of meeting with those 4 teams, the recruiter will ask you to rank them. And so you might have here, I have illustrated having 2 team match calls per week. It could be more, it could be 1 per week if scheduling is a problem. It could be 4 in a week if people have a lot of availability. What generally happens is the recruiter is reaching out to the managers individually to see when they're free to team match. And so it's a lot of coordination on their side. It can take a while. But once you've met with all of the teams, and let's say that takes 2 weeks, you'll rank them in the order of your preference and give that to the recruiter. The recruiter will try to match you with the best team. So if you ranked team 3 over team 2 and you matched with team 3, it'll be team 3. But if team 3 said no, not a fit, then it will go to your second choice, which is team 2. That will then go into the hiring committee and you'll get an offer. And so the best match scenario is going to likely take at least 2 to 3 weeks. But like the other matching strategy, it could go on longer as long as there are potential team matches and a match isn't found. The other thing to consider is if you're in team matching and it's a holiday period or it's a busy period at the company, then it'll take longer to schedule the team matching calls, just like it can take longer to schedule interviews. Into the hiring committee. Once you have matched with a manager, an opening, so you say, I want this position, and the manager says, I like this candidate, then the hiring committee meets. And the people in the hiring committee are your interviewers, the hiring manager, and the recruiter. And they're coming together to discuss you as a candidate. The outcome of the hiring committee, the first thing is a hire, no hire decision. So at this point, you'll know if you're going to get an offer or not. And this is where the entire group looks at your interview performance, any strengths or weaknesses, and your hiring manager will decide whether there are any concerns for the role. And so that's where the hire, no hire comes in. And you have to have a hiring manager to get to an offer. And that's why you can't get an offer before team matching is done. The next thing they'll talk about is your job level. If you performed really well and they think there's a chance you could be leveled up, or if you had a lot of growth areas and they think you might be appropriate for a level down, this is where that discussion will come up. And they'll follow up with you if there's a level up or level down opportunity. Most companies don't do this, but it's still possible that this can happen. If it does happen, unfortunately, you'll go back into team matching if the manager doesn't have a role at that level for you. Finally, the hiring committee decides where you fall within the compensation band of the job level. The way this works is they look at how strong you are in that level. If it looks like you'll be in that level for a long time, you have a lot of time to grow, they'll want to set your compensation so that there's room for you to get raises every year and stay within the job level. If they think you're really close to promotion, they'll put you higher in the level because they anticipate you'll be in that level for a shorter period of time. And so the hiring committee has impacts all three of these outcomes. In terms of what the team matching call actually looks like, it's a 30-minute call between you and the hiring manager. The hiring manager will ask you questions about your background, culture fit questions, your career goals, and your interests and motivation. The hiring manager will ask questions about your background to understand if you fit that team well. So, for example, you might have interviewed for a generalist job role, but the team specifically needs someone who knows security, or they might need someone who is an expert at API design. So, they'll ask specific questions about your experience. Next is culture fit. The manager might be looking for a particular skill set to round out the team culture, someone who might be good at mentoring or someone who's really good at infrastructure to help teach the team. And so if the manager has 5 people and they're looking for a specific type of person to fill out that sixth position, these are the types of questions they'll ask. Managers also want to understand what your career goals and interests are. They want to find a candidate that they think will be successful on the team and that will stay on the team for a while. So just be ready to have answers to these questions or expect that a manager might ask these questions to you. The other half of the conversation is questions you can ask the manager, and these can be along similar lines. You can be asking about team culture, like how often do we have meetings? Do we I don't know, do design reviews, things like that, where you can ask things that might make you feel more comfortable on a particular team or not. You can ask about work-life balance. What are the core working hours? Do you have to go into work every day? What is the on-call schedule like? So this is your opportunity to ask questions like that about the specific team you're going to join instead of the general company questions you might have in a typical interview. You can also ask about your career goals. You can say, I'd like to get promoted in 5 years, or I'm thinking about moving into management. And you can ask, is this an option on the team? Or do you have experience transitioning an employee from individual contributor to manager? You want to ask questions that are going to help you decide between multiple teams or decide if one team just won't work for you. So, whatever questions you need to ask to decide team A or team B, or any questions you need to ask to say, no, I'm definitely not going to take this position, keep those in mind. In terms of the call schedule or the agenda, it usually follows this particular structure. I think I did maybe 10 team matching calls for the several months that I was interviewing, and they mostly followed this structure where the manager would do an introduction, and so would the candidate. The manager will give you a team overview. What does the team work on? Sometimes they'll get into the size of the team and the current products or projects that are in flight. Then you have a little bit of time to talk, to do a follow-up question on the team overview. I recommend leaving more time at the end for your questions than asking a lot about the team itself. Then the manager will get into team fit questions, things like what are your career goals? Do you have experience with GraphQL? Whatever it is they're looking for. And then you can get into your questions about the team, the manager, whatever your career goals are. I recommend giving more time to the manager just so that they can come to a team matching decision, unless you have specific deal breakers that you really want to get to. You do have the option for an additional call, or some of the managers I spoke to said, message me, like email me with any additional questions, and I'm happy to answer. So if you don't get to every question you want, then you'll have the opportunity to ask again. And that's why I recommend leaving more time for the manager so that they can get the information they need to make a matching decision. How to prepare for this? First, make sure to tell the recruiter what you're looking for if you have preferences. So as soon as the recruiter says we're going into team matching, you might say, if you have any roles that have something to do with security, or I'm really interested in working on customer-facing products, this is an opportunity to tell them ahead of time so they can find roles that already match your interests. Be careful though, if you have a deal breaker where it's, I'm only going to work on security versus I prefer security and I'll work on other things, just make sure it's clear what is a preference and what is a requirement. The second is to research the team prior to team matching. The managers may ask, why are you interested in this team? Or why is this area interesting to you? So if the recruiter gives you a job posting or if the recruiter gives you a blurb about the team, make sure to read it and think a little bit about why you would be interested in it. Make sure to prepare your introduction about yourself and your background because there's not a lot of time in the interview. It's a 30-minute call and there's a lot of ground to cover. So try to have something concise prepared. Then ask the 2 to 3 questions that you have, you'd like to ask a potential manager to decide which team you'd like to join or if you'd like to join a given team. Again, there's not a lot of time, so really focus on getting some concise questions that will give you the data you need to make a decision. Getting into some of the benefits of team matching. So if you hear that there's team matching coming up in a job interview process, here are some things that you can look forward to. You might be able to pick something you're more interested in working on. So like I said, the recruiter might say, congrats, you passed all your technical interviews. Now we're going into team matching. And you could say, great, if there's anything in the security area, I'm really interested in that. I'm open to other things. And so you might potentially find something you're more interested in. You might be able to find a manager you want to work with more. Having the opportunity to chat with multiple managers and see if there's something that clicks. You can even ask, what's your working style? How do you like to communicate? Things like that, so you can find a person that you want to work with. You can try to choose a team aligned with your career goals. One of the questions you could ask in team matching is, what project do you have in mind for me to work on when I join? If there's a project you're interested in, or if there's a project that you feel will help you with career growth, then you might be able to choose a team that helps grow your career more quickly. And along the same lines as all of this, you can prioritize your values and work-life needs across multiple options. If one team, if you're working at a remote company and one team has Pacific hours and the other has East Coast hours, that might be something that you can choose to fit your work-life needs. Some of the downsides of team matching, pretty much what I've been saying this whole time, is that there's no guaranteed offer. And it's very frustrating to go through all of these interviews and only to find out that you're stuck in this limbo and you don't know when it's going to end. And that's kind of the other big thing, is you don't know how long it will take. With the technical interview rounds, you sort of know how many there are and how many you'll do in a week. So if you have 7 technical interview rounds, you know when it's going to end. But with the team matching, you don't know what roles you'll be matched with, how long it will take to schedule, or how many team match calls you'll have to do. There is no guarantee the position you apply to is still available. Companies can have 2 different strategies for job applications. For me, for each of the teams that I interviewed for, each of them had a specific job posting on their website. So it was like, you will work on the ID verification team. I applied to that position. By the time I got into team matching, however many weeks later, that specific position wasn't available. And so I would be matched with all the other positions. And so when you encounter a company that has team matching and you specifically want the role you applied to, you may not actually get that. There might be something similar available, but if you're in a situation where you only want to leave your current job, if you can get a position in security, then the team matching process might be a big downside for you. It is difficult to get competing offers at the same time when one or more companies have team matching. So if you are the kind of person that's interviewing at 2 or 3 companies and you want to try to get the best compensation, you try to have the interviews scheduled so that you get offers at about the same time. Unfortunately, with team matching, it could take 1 week, it could take 4 weeks. If you're interviewing with multiple companies, you don't know when those competing offers will come in. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, that if you specifically want to get competing offers, team matching might throw that out the window for you. So some tips I have coming into team matching, just looking at the overall content here. Make sure to ask the recruiter if the interview process includes team matching. Most recruiters are pretty upfront about what the interview process is, but make sure to ask what happens after you pass the technical interviews if the recruiter hasn't told you already. Budget at least an extra 2 to 3 weeks of time for team matching. If you have a specific deadline, if you really need a job by a certain time, just be aware that team matching will add at least 2 weeks and an unknown amount of time. And so this might be one of those things where you might have to eliminate that company. You might still interview, but know that if they don't get you an offer in time, you'll have to pass on them. I have said this before, but make sure to prepare that intro and those questions because those calls are quick and you want to make sure that you make I wouldn't say good impression, but you want to make sure you give the manager all the information they need to make a decision and that you have all the information you need to make a decision. Ideally, team matching doesn't take longer than it has to, and part of that is making sure that conversation is efficient and effective. And again, choose those questions that will help you decide between teams. If on-call rotation or how much time you spend coding or what the core working hours makes you choose one team over the other, make sure to keep those questions in mind. Don't make plans assuming you'll have an offer. So you enter team matching, don't put in your resignation, don't cancel your other job interviews. So your interview process is not over, even though you've passed all the technical interviews. And again, be clear if you have preferences or deal breakers with your recruiter. If you prefer security, but you're open to infrastructure and product, let them know. If you only want security, let them know as well. I'm going to show what my interview timeline looked like and how team matching made things kind of uncomfortable and how I experienced some of the downsides of team matching when I interviewed earlier this year. Again, this was early 2025, January, February, March, April, and the interview processes change all the time. So this is a sort of compressed version of what my interview timeline looked like. There's only so much space on a slide, but this is approximately what it looked like. I was interviewing with three different companies that did team matching. The first company, Company A, did first match. The second did best match. And then the third did first match. You'll notice that for all companies, I started interviews with them within 2 weeks of each other. And so I started with Company A first and Company B and C the week after. Even so, the timeline was 3, 4 weeks out because of team matching. So with Company A, I passed the interviews. The first team I met with was a match, and I got an offer very quickly. This is where I didn't realize what team matching was going to be like, and I wish I had known everything in this presentation ahead of time because Company B took a long time, relatively a long time, to find a match and get an offer. So between Company A and Company B, it was a 3, 4 week difference between the two offers because of the different team matching strategy, because team matching just took longer. With the third company, even though they were first match, unfortunately, midway through team matching, the company had layoffs and they closed all open roles, which meant that my candidacy ended. So, nothing to do with my interview performance. The company just immediately stopped hiring. And because I hadn't matched with a team, because the hiring committee hadn't met, and I didn't have an offer, that was it. No job for you. For that company, though, if you were a candidate and you had an offer, you kept that offer and you could still accept it. And so that's a very clear difference I experienced where if you had an offer, you were good. If you were in team matching, you were not. And even in that situation, my recruiter was laid off. And so it was awkward because not only did I not know what was going to happen with my candidacy, but I just had no idea who was even going to talk to me about it. So that was a bit chaotic. And that was a very uh, clear illustration of how team matching is really unstable and kind of scary. So even just between Company A and Company B, not knowing how long I would have to extend the offer, do I take the offer I have or wait for an offer that might be better? Keeping in mind that there are other candidates that are going through team matching. The company doesn't want to hold that position open for you forever. And similarly with Company B, even though you're actively team matching, all the teams that you're matching with might get matched with somebody else. And so it can be very stressful not knowing when team matching will end and not knowing when to wait or ask for an extension. So that's everything I have on the main content for team matching. So I'd like to open it up for questions, and Meg, I'll leave it up to you whether you want to keep recording or not.
Um, well, first off, that was an awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, no, thank you. Jam-packed with information. Uh, Thanks a lot, Alicia. Um, does would anybody like to ask any questions? We have any from the audience here? I wrote down a couple as you were talking. Oh, here we go. Cluster, go ahead.
Thanks so much for that presentation. That was really interesting. When I was interviewing with my current company, during the interview process, like the technicals, I ended up meeting my team members. So in team matching, it sounded like you only met managers and maybe random people from the company doing the technical interviews. Did you get to meet any team members that you were considering?
That's a good question. With some companies, they will have your interviewers just be out of a pool of all interviewers at the company. And all these companies that I interviewed with this time around, it was just any person, any technical person at the company could have interviewed me. So they were unlikely to be on my team. That being said, some of my interviewers requested that I be matched with their team because they liked me, I guess. But in general, with team matching, you are unlikely to talk to people directly on your team, and you will end up talking to the managers. Some managers will offer to have you talk to an engineer on the team if you'd like to, because they know that you will not have had the opportunity during the interview process. And to talk about like more related to your experience, there are some companies where they don't do team matching and you'll be interviewed only by people on your team. And so that's another style of interviewing that companies do.
Is there a specific name for that style, or it's just a different kind of
I think that's the default, really.
default style?
Yeah, it's just the default. Team matching is one of those things where some companies do it, and when it's a job market that favors candidates, it's great for the candidates. But when it's a job market that favors companies, it's not so great for the candidates.
Gotcha. Eddie, you gotta unmute yourself there.
Thanks. Whoops. Yeah, thanks, Meg. Hey Alicia. Yeah, thanks for that presentation. That was great. It was awesome. Um, yeah, I was just wondering like if you'd be comfortable giving kind of like an anecdote, I guess, just from your team matching process, just to add a little color to, I don't know, like maybe your experience. You covered a lot of the, yeah, things you might look for and like the timeline and stuff, but I'm just curious, like maybe, I don't know, some qualifications that you had going in. Maybe you were like excited about one team, but it just like didn't work out, but then you were surprised that like the next one was good or bad or just anything like along those lines.
Sure. So with the company, I'll give a couple. I'll try to do one per company, I guess. So with one of the companies, the one that had layoffs, that's where I was talking to them and I said, I like security. And I was interviewing with one of the organizations that did security. Um, and so that worked in that sense. But then when I met with the different managers, and I talked to the recruiter, sorry, let me restart. I've confused myself because I coupled two things. One of them was that I told the recruiter I'm interested in security. And I realized later that she was only giving me teams with security, and that was making my process go too long. The second part of it is I met with this manager, and I liked this manager, and I liked what she was working on. I'm like, it seems really interesting. It's a security area related to compliance. And so I was excited to hear back from the recruiter, but the recruiter said, she just didn't get a good impression. She might want more time to ask. And I was sort of like, can you, like, I don't understand. And the recruiter basically said this without saying this, that the manager was worried about layoffs and didn't want to hire someone. And this is where I started getting a bit of a weird feeling from the company. Um, the manager said something like they don't want to hire a poor performer and have them laid off. But again, this was all like really sort of hints and rather not explicit. And so that was a bit of a strange experience there where I didn't match, and it raised a red flag. Some of the other teams I interviewed with, one of the managers asked, um, I've been talking to a lot of engineers that have infrastructure experience, but I need an engineer that has worked on a customer API and they've worked with multiple different client teams. Do you have that experience? And I said, yes, I have that experience. She asked, is this something that you'd like to work on? I said, yes. I love going into meetings where no one can make sense of stuff. And so those were some specific things that they asked. And then for career, things like I am looking for a project that can be cross team. And then the manager would respond and say, we build APIs that are consumed by 3 different teams, and they could actually give me the names of the teams. And they said, I think we can do that for you. Does that give you like more concrete examples of the types of questions?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, appreciate it.
I will say that I also try to ask every team, what's your roadmap? And if the manager couldn't answer, then I was kind of like, if you don't know what you're doing for the next 6 months, then I don't know what I'm doing for the next 6 months. So that was one I asked as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Arvin, how about you?
Yeah, I love the presentation. I have one question. So, like you shared your experience, like you are giving interview for the three company at the same time. So, what if someone is giving such interview and he got the offer from one company, but at another company he is doing team matching and he didn't know how much longer the team matching will take. And once you got offer from a company, the company will try to force you to give them yes or no, like sign their contract soon. So like how to deal with that situation? Because I know you can't. This is good to tell the first company that I am doing team matching with second company because there's sometime the timing is not sure. So
Right.
what the best side it is?
Yeah, there's really no easy way out of that situation. So you're going to have to compromise or take a chance because you can't ask the company to keep extending the offer. That being said,
Hey,
generally companies will,
Alicia, real
oh, yeah,
quick, can you back up to that one slide where you showed your timeline?
sure, I can do that.
What happened?
So generally, when you start an interview process with a recruiter, they will ask, are there any other interview deadlines we should know about? And so it's always good to tell your recruiter if you're interviewing at other places and where you are. And so in week 4 here, when I got the offer, I told company B and company C that I have an offer. And they said the soonest possible offer we could get you is in 2 weeks, but because we have team matching, we can't guarantee anything. And so that's what they told me. I told company A that I was in team matching and it could take 2 weeks. Could I get a 2 week extension? Now, past self didn't really realize how unrealistic that was. Um, 3 weeks would have been more realistic, but then company A was kind of like, that's a long time. And so what I could have done, company A is first match. I could have said, could I actually meet with more teams? So if I had known then what I know now, I could have tried to extend it a little bit by meeting with more teams, but it's still a risk because, you're kind of playing with your risk tolerance. Do you want any offer? Do you want the best offer? Um, will you regret it if you miss out on one because you waited for the other? It's just a tough situation that you'll have to sit down with yourself and think about. And it's something you can think about ahead of time. If you hear there's team matching ahead of time, you can try to say, what are my priorities? Because in the moment, you're going to be potentially very stressed out. Several people, even the recruiters, for companies B and C said you could accept the offer with company A and rescind when you get an offer from us. So even the recruiters were like, we know this isn't great, but you could do this. And so company company B, the recruiter, he was like, you're a strong candidate. Tell them to delay. Like, you call the shots. You're the candidate. So he was my cheerleader for company B. And then company C was like, you know, company C, again, the recruiter probably knew there was layoffs coming, and she was like, don't give up that offer. See if you can ask for an extension. And so it was just a really strange interview experience. But to get back to your question, you can try to draw things out a little bit by extending scheduling. You can ask for an extension. You can try to get an unofficial compensation range and see if you can go to company A and say, hey, they're going to give me this much. Can you get back to me? But honestly, once you have an offer from company A, you can probably only extend it for 2 to 3 weeks. In this job market, in a different job market, like 5, 6 years ago, you could have probably had it open for 2 months.
It almost seems like a gambling strategy, really.
Yeah, and it's all about your risk tolerance. So if you need a job and you're happy with company A, you can take company A. But at the same time, for me, I wouldn't call it a hack, but I always try to see the interview process all the way to offer, so that I have that information, what's in the offer. But I've done this before where I've joined a company and 6 months in, a year in, it's like, this is not what I thought it was. And I go back to a company where I got an offer and I said, hey, so I interviewed with you last year. And that's happened a couple of times in my career where I go back to an offer from a year ago and they say, oh, we have an opening. They're not holding that offer open. It just so happens that they'd rather have a candidate that already passed the interviews. So I tend to see it all the way through to the offer. But if you're the kind of person that's like, I want to find a job and I don't want to be tempted to take another one, you can just uh, accept offer A and say, I'm no longer interviewing with company B and C, and kind of move on.
Mhm. So we have a few questions in the chat. Um, do you know if team matching is only being done for developer roles or other types of roles as well?
I think it happens most often for developer roles, but I don't know for sure. Because I spoke to a manager at another company where they said they had the opportunity to choose which team they would join, and that was kind of a lighter team matching. So team matching is more common at larger companies. So Facebook and Google did team matching years ago. So maybe like 10 years ago, they did team matching. Some of them still do, some teams still do, and so it's case by case. But in companies that are so big, they tend to have a huge amount of candidates and a huge amount of job openings. They do team matching because there's just constant flow of candidates. And so those are two big companies that I know have historically done team matching. I was actually surprised to encounter 3 companies that did it because every other company I've worked for didn't. Um,
Mm.
I think that answers that question.
Also, do you use any apps to track your job interviews and deadlines?
I don't, I mean, I use Google Calendar to track my interview schedules, and I use Notion to keep track of my notes. So in Notion, I have what's the date of the interview and what's the interview prep. Who will I talk to? What questions do I want to ask? What do I need to prepare? But nothing that fancy. With the job interviews, my calendar was just packed with hours of interviews every day. And mornings were studying and afternoons were whatever interview comes up. And so I kind of just put it in my calendar and took it day by day. So nothing to track that. In terms of deadlines, I just had the one offer, and then the second offer. Third offer kind of went out the window. So that was pretty simple for me to track.
Mm, yeah. I had a couple questions. So you mentioned candidate questions during team matching, and I know you've worked at quite a few different places, in different teams. So this one's a two-parter. Like, what team culture questions do you ask? And do you, are there any questions that you ask each team to see their response and compare during the process?
Right. For me, because I'm in a fully remote role and I'm on the East Coast, and some of these companies, some are East Coast, some are West Coast, some have both. I would ask, what are your core working hours? So that was a really important question for me. I asked every manager, what are your core working hours? I asked the manager what time zone they were in so that I knew what my working schedule was going to be like. So that was a top question for me. Um, the I didn't like, the next questions were around on-call. How bad is your on-call? I want to be able to sleep most nights when I'm on call, so that was another top question for me. And then the third question that was important to me was, what are your thoughts on contributions to open source or presenting? And so, like presenting at something like this, that's more of a company policy though. So it's not the best type of question to ask in a team match, but those other two, where, am I going to have a crazy on call and will I be able to work hours I want? Those were really important to me.
Yeah, gotcha. And another question from the chat. How important is taking breaks slash recharging so you can go into these meetings strong? Because it seems like a grueling process. Plus one for that.
Yeah, it was very difficult to, keep going through this, and it really depends on you and your style. And so my style was to prepare, and when I joined the interviews, on one side of my screen, I'd have the script of everything I was going to ask. I asked it and I took notes. At that point, if I was fueled solely by caffeine, I still asked the questions and took the notes. And at another point in time, when I had regained some level of sanity, I could reread the notes. And so that's how I managed it. Even when I wasn't fully, some days were good days, some days were bad days, but every day was a team match day. And so I made sure to have my intro prepared, my questions prepared, things like that. And so it is up to you. Can you manage these types of interviews without being at your best? Or you plan to space it out more? If you're the kind of person that needs to be a bit more relaxed, then maybe you don't interview at 3 companies at the same time. Something that maybe I don't do again either.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you definitely, for better or for worse, came away with a lot of lessons learned. Uh,
Yes. And next time I see a company with team matching, I will be very careful to look ahead to make sure I'll have the time and have the brain space to have an unknown amount of time for team matching.
mhm. Yeah. And it's very appreciated that you're sharing your experience to help others prepare for that too. Because what you went through sounds like very, very much something that a lot of people would not handle as well as you did. So,
I
uh,
wasn't working during this time, so that's a caveat is I was unemployed for this job hunt. Otherwise, this would not have been a realistic schedule.
yeah, but you did come away with a job,
Yeah.
so congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Um, we have 5 minutes left, so uh, let me see. Let me just check back in here. If you have any comments or questions, just feel free to reach out to the maintainers, myself, Becca, Kirk, Dan. Um, and this Lunch and Learn's coming at an awesome time because June and July is our Get Job Ready challenge, monthly challenges. Um, so way to kind of get it kicked off right beforehand. I'm sure this will benefit a lot of people, and stay tuned for more announcements and Slack coming out with that. Thanks everybody for coming out, and see you later in Slack.
Thanks, Meg, and thanks, everyone.